Maria Jose Coni and Marina Menegazzo were two young, bright students from Argentina. They set out on what they hoped would be the trip of a lifetime, traveling across South America. But just days after they vanished without a trace, their bodies were found, wrapped in plastic bags, bound, mutilated. What began as a carefree vacation quickly turned into a global outcry for answers. Their story spread like wildfire, shaking two nations and becoming one of the darkest, most perplexing cases in South American history. What really happened that night? And who might still be hiding in the shadows? Maria Jose was 22. Marina was just 21. Best friends from Mendoza, Argentina. They were bright, kind, and always seemed to be smiling. Maria was studying economics, while Marina was training to become a speech therapist. In their free time, they spent hours helping people experiencing homelessness, not because they felt obligated, but because it genuinely came from the heart. Volunteering was not a chore for them. It was simply part of who they were. Everyone who knew them said the same thing. They were pure light, and they were inseparable. On January 10th, 2016, they packed their backpacks. Along with two other friends, they headed off on a short trip, just a little time away from school and a chance to make some memories. The route had already been mapped out: South America, Ecuador, Peru. On social media, everything looked perfect. Smiling faces, ocean views, new cities, new memories. Their trip looked like a dream unfolding. By February 13th, after a month on the road, the group decided to split up. Their two friends headed back to Argentina, but Maria Jose and Marina chose to stay behind in Ecuador. It was not a last-minute decision. This had been the plan all along. Stay a little longer, see a little more, then get back in time for class. They found themselves back in Montañita, the small coastal town where their journey through Ecuador had first begun. Montañita felt like one long celebration. Lively beaches, music everywhere, backpackers from all over the world. Maria and Marina wanted to be self-reliant, so they found their own way, selling food on the beach to cover their stay, just enough to keep the dream alive. And on social media, everything still looked like paradise. Breathtaking sunsets, big smiles, ocean waves. To anyone watching from home, they seemed completely happy. Their time in Montañita was coming to an end. They were scheduled to leave on February 22nd. Everything had been planned. From the beach town to Guayaquil, then a flight to Lima, where friends were waiting. After that, Chile, and finally, home to Mendoza. Their tickets were booked. The route was clear. They were only days away from making it back. On the morning of February 22nd, Maria and Marina called home. Everything seemed calm. They were getting ready to leave later that day. Then another message came in. They planned to hitchhike from Montañita to Guayaquil. Someone had stolen their money, they said. Their families immediately offered to send help, but the women declined. "We've got it under control," they assured them. Before signing off, they warned that they might be out of touch for a few days. Their families expected to hear from them in Lima, or at least before their flight. But that message never came. Sometime after noon on February 22nd, they went silent. Forever. Their flight to Lima departed right on time, but Maria Jose and Marina never boarded the plane. By February 26th, their families were back home and growing increasingly anxious. Nothing. By February 27th, panic was setting in. Marina's sister was the first to sound the alarm, posting a smiling photo of the two women online. "My sister and her friend went missing on February 22nd in Montañita. Please share." The post spread rapidly. Even the president of Ecuador responded, announcing that police were investigating. Hug your parents and Maria Jose's parents. All of Ecuador is with you. Their families desperately tried to get answers. Did they board the flight? Did they cross the border? But the airline would not release any information without a court order. And border officials remained silent. No records, no sign of them. That was when it became chillingly clear. The women had never left Montañita. Whatever happened before that. While officials seemed to stall, the internet exploded with the story of two missing women, one terrifying mystery, and two nations united in the search for the truth. On Thursday, February 25th, in a patch of overgrown brush near the beach, Maria Jose's body was found about 650 feet from the shoreline. 3 days later, on Sunday, February 28th, there was another discovery, only about 130 feet away. It was Marina. And that was when things turned even darker. How could her body have been missed lying so close to the first? Too many questions, too many inconsistencies. And this was only the beginning. An autopsy was immediately ordered to determine the exact time of death. Maria Jose's body had been discovered by a man who claimed he had simply wandered into the brush to relieve himself. But what he found looked like something out of a horror movie. Both women had been wrapped in plastic and bound with rope. Maria Jose had a fractured skull, bruises, cuts, genital trauma, and a broken hip. Marina had been stabbed 6 times, from her chin to the base of her neck. Her face was scraped, and her wrists were torn by rope. The message was unmistakable. They had been restrained, and they had fought back. Medical examiners concluded that they were killed on the same day, just hours apart, sometime in the early morning of February 23rd. The day after Marina's body was found, police made a bold announcement. Arrests had already been made. 2 men, Alberto Mina Ponce and Aurelio Rodriguez, known as El Rojo. Bloodstains were found in one of their nearby homes, along with a backpack and a phone belonging to one of the women. But the real shock was this. They confessed. Just like that. No pressure, no drawn-out interrogations. They simply told police what had happened. At first, it looked like an open and shut case. But the more investigators listened, the more cracks began to show. According to the suspects, it all started near a bar in Montañita. Maria and Marina were trying to get a ride to Guayaquil, but no one agreed to take them. That was when El Rojo approached them. He struck up a conversation. The women, he claimed, said they had been robbed, left with no money and nowhere to spend the night. El Rojo offered a solution. They could stay at his friend's place, Alberto Mina Ponce's house. It was nearby. The owner lived alone, and it was safe, or so he said. He called a taxi, took them to the house, and according to his story, locked the door behind them. Then the 2 men left and headed back to the bar. They returned in the middle of the night. The women were still there. Supposedly, they asked the men to buy soda. But when the men came back, something had changed. What happened next, according to their version, was deeply disturbing. Then things turned dark. The men were drunk, and according to them, they made advances on the women. But Maria and Marina were sober, and they said no. They resisted. They fought back. That was when the nightmare began. First, Maria Jose. Mina Ponce admitted it. He grabbed a heavy metal object and struck her in the head. One blow. Fatal. Then came a scream from the next room. It was Marina. El Rojo walked in and stabbed her 6 times, from her chin to the base of her neck. Both women were dead, and the killers just stood there in silence, staring at what they had done. After the murders, El Rojo simply walked away, leaving Mina Ponce alone with the 2 bodies. At that point, everything was dead quiet. Mina panicked. He started cleaning, wiping away the blood. Then he wrapped the bodies in plastic, tied them with rope, and wheeled them out on a rusted cart. First Maria Jose, then Marina. He dumped them in a remote area, convinced no one would ever find them, that the women would simply disappear. Prosecutors did not just have confessions. They had 2 eyewitnesses, 2 people who did not know each other, but told remarkably similar stories. The first was the owner of a small local bar. She said that around mid-afternoon, she saw the 2 women outside, looking tired. asking strangers for a ride to Guayaquil. No one agreed to take them. A couple of hours later, the women came into the bar and asked for a glass of water. They said they did not have any money. They had been robbed that morning. As the woman poured the water, a man approached them. El Rojo. She watched them talk, then walk off together in the direction of a nearby house. The second witness was a taxi driver. He said El Rojo flagged him down on the road and got into the front seat. The women got in the back, silent. They did not speak during the entire ride. To the driver, something felt wrong. They seemed slow, dazed, almost like they had been drugged. He dropped them off at the address and drove away, never asking questions. The families did not believe a word of it. None of it made sense. Why would Maria and Marina go with complete strangers? Why not ask other Argentinians for help? There were plenty of them in Montañita. Why would they say they had no money if they had credit cards? And here is the key detail. Just a day before the murders, Maria Jose had withdrawn cash from an ATM just steps from their hostel. So they did have money. They could have paid for a room. They did not need to follow anyone home. And then came something even more disturbing. The brother of one of the women visited the house where it all supposedly happened. He saw used syringes on the floor. But when he asked police about them, they were gone. No photos, no evidence tags, no report. Investigators claimed they did not see anything. That was when the family knew. These two men were not the masterminds. They were pawns. A cover-up, maybe for something even darker. Human trafficking, corruption. Whatever it was, the truth was slipping farther away. The investigation was not over. A second autopsy was ordered, along with a full toxicology report. And that was when things really started to fall apart. The suspects began constantly changing their stories. Then, out of nowhere, Mina Ponce retracted his confession. He no longer blamed himself or El Rojo. Now the killer was someone else. A Venezuelan drug dealer known only as El Chamo. Police tracked him down. He denied everything and offered to give DNA, take a lie detector test, anything. He passed every test. No match. But at the crime scene, investigators had found several DNA profiles. Mina's, both victims, and one more, unidentified. It did not match El Rojo. It did not match El Chamo. It belonged to someone else. Someone who was there. Someone who then vanished from the report. And then came another bombshell. The second autopsy revealed something horrifying. Maria Jose had died on February 23rd, but Marina was killed 2 days later. That changed everything. When they found Maria's body, Marina might still have been alive. That was why she was not discovered, even though she was only about 130 feet away. And that was why her body showed newer signs of abuse. Suddenly, the timeline shifted. This was not just murder. This was kidnapping, torture. And the biggest question now was this: who else was in that house? Because someone else was. And whoever that was may still be out there. Police claimed they missed Marina's body because of heavy rain. But weather records told a different story. There was no rain that day. And that was when the cracks in the investigation really began to show. The autopsy only raised more questions. Maria Jose had bruises and scrapes, but only on one side of her body, as if she had been thrown from a moving car. Both women had injuries consistent with sexual assault. That much was clear. But there was one detail no one could explain. Maria's hip was fractured, yet there were no external wounds to match the injury. It was as if the break had come from within. Then came the toxicology report. In their systems was a banned substance mixed with alcohol. It became a chemical weapon. It erased free will. Victims do not fight back. They follow. They obey. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why they got into a stranger's car. Why they sat in silence. Why they seemed tired and dazed. They had been drugged before it ever began. And that meant one thing. This was not random. It was planned. From day one, the families did not buy the official version. These women were not reckless. They were smart, cautious. The idea that they would follow drunk strangers into a house, it just did not make sense. Then came the toxicology reports, and suddenly, it did. Someone had drugged them, stripped away their will. The trial was a mess, with 3 different prosecutors and endless delays. But in the end, Alberto Mina Ponce and Aurelio El Rojo Rodriguez were both sentenced to 40 years in prison. It should have been over, but for the families, this was only the halfway point, because not all of the DNA matched, which meant someone else had been in that house, and whoever it was, they were still out there. Just when it seemed like the case was closed, everything flipped again. 2 more arrests. One man was cleared. His DNA did not match, and he had an airtight alibi. But the other, he was not just connected. His DNA was a match, a direct hit. His name was Jose Luis Perez, and it was not the first time that name had come up, because Jose was the man who found Maria Jose's body, the so-called random passerby, the witness, the man who said he had stumbled across the body by accident. Now he was the one on trial. What had he been hiding all this time? And why did investigators take his story at face value without ever testing his DNA? The witness had been part of the crime scene all along. Jose Luis Perez's defense was almost laughable. He claimed the blood on the wall came from a tooth infection. He said he had lived in the house weeks earlier and just happened to spit right where investigators later found evidence. As for his DNA on the victims, his lawyers argued that it was a coincidence. He touched the furniture, they said, and so did the women. That was all. But that fantasy unraveled quickly, because when the dentist took the stand, everything changed. Yes, Perez had visited him, but it was 2 weeks after the murders. And more importantly, he had asked the dentist to forge a note claiming he had an infection earlier. The dentist refused. There was no infection, no symptoms, nothing. And just like that, the entire defense collapsed. Then came the kicker. Perez was not just a suspect. He was the man who discovered Maria Jose's body. What were the odds? Was it luck, or was he trying to control the timeline? To control what got found, and when? At that point, it was clear. He had been playing everyone from the start. It was a long, exhausting fight. But finally, in November 2019, Jose Luis Perez was sentenced to 40 years behind bars for his role in the murders. You would think that would be the end of it, but it was not even close. Because buried deep in the case files are DNA samples that still have not been matched. Unknown traces, unknown hands. Proof that someone else may have been there and walked away free. And the questions still haunt this case. What really happened that night, February 23rd? Why did one woman die almost immediately while the other suffered for 2 more days? Who else was in that house? Was all of this planned from the beginning? No one knows for sure, but the families of Maria Jose and Marina Menegazzo are still fighting for justice, for truth, and for the world to remember 2 young women who set out on the trip of a lifetime and never made it home. And even now, this case still doesn't feel finished. So if Maria Jose and Marina's story stayed with you, leave a comment below. And if you want more real cases told with the same depth and care, subscribe.